Okay, well, let's get started. I want to make sure that everybody has time to ask their questions or that we can even brainstorm ideas together if that's what you're interested in. I'm really excited to welcome you all to an info session for the TLC 2022 Call for Proposals. My name's Teresa Keurig, and I'm the AVP of Faculty Affairs. And I'm joined by Allison Calvert, who's a faculty support consultant and our conference app administrator. Allison is also responsible for getting all of this proposal mechanics off the ground. So we're both here to walk you through the proposal process, talk a little bit about the conference theme and logistics and next steps. And then mostly we want to have a discussion with you about what else you'd like to know, and any ideas that you'd like to share with the group. So I encourage everybody to be on camera. We'll be chatting with each other if you feel comfortable. I also recognize it's early on a Friday morning, right before a holiday weekend. So completely fine if you if you're not interested. Also, this meeting is being recorded. So if you need to hop off, we will post the recording in the weekly faculty news digest. So you can catch up that way. So, like I said, we'll run through the TLC theme, some key questions that we're hoping presentations this year will consider. We'll talk through the presentation modalities and some differences in the proposal review form from previous years, and then we'll just have a Q&A and discussion. You all, I imagine, since you're here, have already taken a look at the TLC website to review the conference theme and the proposal modalities and things like that. TLC theme this year is a result of lots of feedback from our entire faculty body and several in academics and student affairs leadership who were really interested in digging deeper into the idea of what a culture of care at a higher education institution means, what it looks like in practice across disciplines and across departments. So from an individual level through institutional policies or administrative practices, instructional practices, et cetera, et cetera. Our theme is bolstered by some interesting research happening across institutions, namely with the Bill and Melinda Gates Post-Secondary Value Commission. Many of you remember last year that probably that Dr. Jennifer Engel was one of the TLC keynotes. She is the director of data in the United States program at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and she spoke with us about the work of the Post-Secondary Value Commission, which is seeking solutions to equity and access to higher ed, but also equity in outcomes from higher ed. And we're also drawing from the work of the USC Puglia Center, which has researched institutional practices that positively impact at promise student success. TLC over the past few years has blossomed even further from an internal conference where we're all sharing our works in progress to an interinstitutional and cross-disciplinary conference. And we hope this year to just continue to build that external participation, which really is a boon to all of us because we can be exposed to and engage with other institutions' practices, their cultures, the research they're doing, and collectively work towards solving problems that, or shared goals that we all have. We also aim to facilitate cross-departmental conversations. So any place we can see intersections of classroom practice and administrative practice and policy, for example, and there are many more examples like that that we can discuss later, I hope. And we hope to obtain some concrete takeaways from this conference about how we can support, how we can enact practices that will bring to fruition equitable access to learning in higher ed. Quickly, logistics, and we'll repeat this later too. TLC is, as always, the first week in November. This year it will be Tuesday, November 1st through Thursday, November 3rd. Our sessions, as always, will begin with a keynote or featured session at 9 a.m. Pacific. And then the last session will begin at 2 p.m. Pacific. And like last year, we'll be hosting the conference on the Whova app, which gives us lots of opportunity for posting materials, having conversations, and engaging with each other through this virtual conference. Come on, there we go. So as you're thinking through what you might be interested in proposing for this conference, and bear in mind that there are implications and connections to be seen with anybody's work, regardless of what you're researching or teaching or your discipline. We are very excited to hear the diverse perspectives of applications of the culture of care, or ideas about, or problems that the culture of care could solve across the board. So please keep that in mind. But to assist in your brainstorming process, we've offered a few questions that you might consider, both practically and theoretically. How can an individual, whether it's staff or faculty at a higher ed institution, reassure non-traditional students that their unique personal experiences and priorities do not inherently mean that they'll be inhibited from achieving their academic goals? How can institutions create policies or uphold practices that don't unnecessarily obstruct students' access to learning, continued access to learning on a day-to-day basis? And when we talk about access to learning opportunities, we're aiming to broaden this definition of access from not just, okay, you were able to enroll in school, but access in the sense of every day you can continue your learning process regardless of what circumstances you might be experiencing at the time. And then what creative teaching or student support practices can help students simultaneously uphold academic rigor and honor the uniqueness of their life demands. So I'm hoping later when I get through this logistical talk, we can all maybe go back to this slide and brainstorm some ideas. You guys can share what you're thinking of for your proposals, and I just am hoping for an all-around casual and helpful discussion for everybody. We have 3 presentation modalities for TLC this year, same as last year. The one that we want to pause on for a minute to discuss a little bit of difference in the approach is the panel discussion. Before I get into this description, I just will situate everybody. If you participated in a panel last year, or if you were a panel chair, you probably remember that we actually had 2 separate calls for proposals for TLC 2021. The first call for proposals was for panel themes in the first place, and then we integrated that into the broader call for proposals later. This year, we are lumping it all into one call for proposals with the objective of giving a panel proposer, who de facto will be the panel chair, full agency over curating their panel theme, their panel participants, and structuring the discussion how they see fit based on the topics they want to cover and the participants who are working with them. So this means that, also different from last year, the conference is not stipulating that each panel participant will, present their own individual presentation and then return for a panel discussion. Rather, we're saying to you, panel chairs, whoever is interested in leading a panel discussion can determine the format however you see fit. For panel discussions, you have up to 60 minutes. They will be hosted live via Zoom, as we do every year. And, logistically, the idea is that you will invite 3 to 5 panelists to present their expertise related to a central problem or theme that you want to address, and then have some sort of group discussion on the relevant intersections of that work toward addressing that problem, maybe coming away with an action item that we could all use or a takeaway. Again, no separate call for panels this year. This is all part of the single call for proposals. The panel structure and execution is completely at the discretion of the chair. And in service of one of TLC's main goals, which I just addressed in a previous slide, we're looking for panels that will demonstrate cross-departmental and interinstitutional collaboration. So if you have an idea for a panel theme, we really encourage you to reach out to your professional networks at other institutions. And that doesn't mean it has to be a school, right? It could be some other industry that would have relevant insights or application for our work. Please be creative and just know that we are eager to hear from as many people, as many perspectives, circumstances as possible. As always, we have individual presentations and e-poster presentations, which are possible for you. Individual presentations are up to 25 minutes long, and that will include a portion for you to have Q&A. These can be either hosted live via Zoom, or you could pre-record them and post them to the conference app, as we did last year. And you will be working out those logistics after we get through the call for proposals process, so you have time to think about what you might want to do. Individual presentations address research on a theoretical or practical application of the elements of the conference theme. And then e-poster presentations are briefer than individual presentations. They all are pre-recorded, and they're focused on offering a worked scenario of how one has applied empathy or advocacy or a behavior related to the conference theme that has resulted in support for non-traditional students. E-posters are really neat because they allow participants to show off something that you tried and that worked, for example. This could be, a partnership that you had across faculty, maybe something that you worked on with a partner in student affairs that had success, an individual project, maybe testing out a new learning technology or teaching practice or something like that. So this is one of the, I think, unique opportunities to give conference attendees a sense of, hey, here's what you can do and this worked. You can access the proposal form at the website listed here, and I know Allison will be posting links in the chat as well. Please know too that all of this information has been appearing in the weekly faculty news digest that you receive on Mondays via email, so you can always go back and reference that. And it is posted on the CEDL website as well. A couple of things to note about the proposal form. For panel proposals specifically, again, we encourage you to work with your professional networks to encourage interinstitutional collaboration for your panels. To support this, there is a field in the panel proposal form, if you select that option, that asks you when you're submitting your proposal to give the TLC proposal reviewers a sense of who will be participating on your panel. So this doesn't mean you have to have the entire panel figured out already, but if you could offer a couple of examples of who you will be including on your panel, that will give reviewers a sense of that possible interinstitutional collaboration or cross-departmental collaboration. Also, the panel proposal elements on the form do articulate the panel chair responsibilities. So again, as the person proposing the panel, you are assuming the responsibilities of being the panel chair. That means that you have full agency and discretion over inviting panelists, curating your panel theme and the participants, and then being the liaison between TLC and your panel to ensure that everybody is up to speed about what information is necessary, all those preparatory steps, and everybody's ready to go in time for the conference. And then finally, for everybody who is proposing, we're asking that you commit to be available to be scheduled between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. on any of the conference dates. I know this might seem like an obvious request when you're submitting a proposal for a conference that happens on certain dates, but this is really just meant to support the scheduling process. I see Allison smiling. I remember how hard she worked last year to make sure that there were no conflicts across panels and individual presentations. And so that acknowledgement will be really helpful for the conference administrators to get this work done so that we can ensure a smooth conference. So a few notes on what is next. The call for proposals ends on June 15th, end of the day, June 15th, 11:59 p.m. We're flexible. Don't panic about that. But you have a couple of weeks still to continue brainstorming, reaching out to your networks to gather panel participants if that's what you're interested in doing. And there are lots of opportunities for everybody to volunteer to support TLC, for example, through proposal review or other conference engagement opportunities like supporting discussions in the conference app, for example, or supporting marketing and things like that. Please see the faculty communication digest for a link to a form where you can sign up. We already have a great number of volunteers, and honestly, we hope for more because that will just improve opportunities for engagement with the conference. Allison also is going to post the link for that in the chat too, if you would like to go now and sign up. Proposal review will begin in late June, if that's something you're interested in supporting. And we anticipate having invitations to presenters ready by late July. And after that, things will move pretty quickly because we'll be reaching out to you for information for your bios and abstracts, and you'll be able to create a speaker page in the conference app and all kinds of fun things like that. So I'll pause now and just open things up for any logistical questions. Please feel free to unmute yourself and just ask. We're a small enough group here, and I'll check the chat to see if I missed anything. Any questions about the proposal forms? Has anyone had any issues or confusion with aiming to fill it out if you've gone and checked it out? Okay, well, that's good. In that, oh, did I hear someone unmute? No? Okay, in that case, I'm gonna back up a few slides. And again, no pressure. I get it's early in the morning, so we can make this a quick meeting, but I would love to hear from you about what you are thinking of bringing to TLC this year. Ideas you have about any of these key questions or any other topic related to the conference theme. We could workshop some ideas if you're stuck. Really, we're just hoping this to be a casual conversation about what everyone's working on. Yeah, Teresa.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces since I met some of you all in Tucson. So through our Power of One breakout groups, I have met with Jamie King, and I don't think she's on here. I forwarded her the invite, but we just, I don't know, we connected over our discussions in Power of One. And so we came up with this idea. We met earlier this week just to kind of brainstorm some ideas. And so we are thinking about doing, and I'm looking for my notes because you know how that is. We were thinking about doing kind of a takeoff of the sharing to connection that I did for my ed talk, but also just talking about how faculty and staff connecting with one another through these, or through these groups like Power of One, but how opening ourselves up to hearing from other people about the programs they're doing and just being vulnerable and just talking about what that feels like as a faculty member virtually, because that's one of my big areas of interest is how do we build this community virtually? How do we connect with people that we've never met before and do that in a way that is meaningful? Mm-hmm. And so in talking to her, I learned about all of these different CHAMPS programs that would be beneficial to my students, but I would not have known about them per se as a newer faculty member had I not reached out to her mm-hmm. and talked about what I'm doing and what my hopes and dreams are. And then she shared her DEI certificates and interests and everything. And so together and I cannot find where I wrote it down, but we have this really kind of clever note. I have too many notebooks, y'all. I apologize. I do. I admit that. I own that, right?
Teresa, I am with you. I was just thinking I need to buy more to keep track of each.
Oh, here it is. I found it in my third notebook. Okay, so that's the nerd in me. But the tentative title we have is Collaborative Relationship Building, a tool for student success and retention. And we are thinking of linking this to like the high impact practice, lane, and then really hitting on how do I connect with her, why that's important, and then how what she's doing can benefit my students and support the culture of care, which is our mission at the school, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to end with like talking about what these efforts look like and how, the turn the tide, the Power of One, the walk the talk, because that's the other thing. Jamie was a part of our walk the talk UFP mm-hmm. project. Mm-hmm. And so through everyone kind of stepping outside of their comfort zone, she and I connected. And so I want to focus on that piece of it. But then I also want to say, and guess what we discovered? And guess how this supports our work mm-hmm. as at UAGC. So what do you think?
I think that's absolutely perfect. Okay. It's both, connecting it. I think it touches on theory, like communication theory, for example.
Right.
But also it's like you have a case study, right? So that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Look for more. We're going to keep working through it. So
I'm excited.
Oh, Becky, I tried the one notebook that didn't work. I went through one like in a month and a half.
I'm just laughing so hard internally because seriously, last week I was texting my sister saying I need some sort of better notebook solution because I am a writer. I'm not a mm-hmm. note taker on the computer. So mm-hmm. I'm glad to know I'm not alone.
You're not alone.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, so I met with and I've known Eric and Stephanie a long time. So part of it was precipitated from the last kind of Power of One session was to work together with them to kind of do a panel presentation. How do we developing a framework to support student success from day one to graduation? We are inexplicably connected mm-hmm. between academics, or at least we should be, between academics and advising. How do we work for that? And we're going to focus because that's a pretty big topic. So we're going to focus our discussion on how do we work together to support graduate students.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes you can go into this big thing, but we're thinking about how do we support, because there's so much emphasis on undergrads as there should be, because that's the largest populations. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure we think about how do we support graduate students as well in the advising model and those type of things. So that's kind of where we're heading. And So it'd be a kind of panel discussion. So I've worked with Stephanie and Eric, and they would get some folks. William Woods is on board for
Okay.
kind of the other grad between the MBA and the org management program. So
Mhm.
so we're looking at a panel discussion on that type of thing, I guess. So
It's really helpful to have a focus like that. Are you thinking specifically Forbes graduate students
not
or just
necessarily.
across the board?
So that's what I'm saying. So if it says 3 to 5,
Mhm.
if we go to 6, I'm sure of that. So I'd reach out to probably somebody on the CAS side if they wanted to be part of that discussion too.
Mhm.
I think we could bring, Erica, they've already talked about, they'll get some folks there. So the thought is to be maybe 3 from the academic side, 3 from the advising side. And I think we could have a pretty good discussion about how do we do that. But mainly from the graduate student side is
Mhm.
kind of where we're heading.
I'm sure that everyone will be very interested in the academics and advising connection there.
Yeah.
That's all
So
I've
one
heard.
thing that Eric did ask me, they're thinking about doing because they have lots of things they do. Some of them are kind of broader things that they do, would
Mhm.
be to do kind of an individual presentation on generally what are the dispositions, what are these things that they work on as an advising team. And
Yeah.
then we would follow that up with a panel discussion talking about, okay, let's talk about some of those things that you do, but how
Mhm.
do we implement them for graduate students?
Great.
It's kind of what we're thinking. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. That sounds
yeah. I mean,
really
there's lots of
helpful.
great ideas we had. Another idea I had, I think, but I've already do it too, so I can't do too much. But you could do that. You could do that same thing with the enrollment folks.
Yeah.
You could do. I think another interesting topic that people don't know much about is PLA. How does prior learning assessment support? I
Yes.
think that's not unknown, but less than known, really great option for people, because now we do PLA for graduate students as well as
Mhm.
undergrads.
You know what, Charlie? Thank you for bringing that up. And I'm looking, I know Kate's in here. In my memory of TLC, which is much more limited than all of yours, I don't recall ever seeing a PLA related presentation.
I mean, I think it'd be really cool to talk about because I mean, I think you talk about, as we all know, students come here, this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be. How
Mhm.
can I get there as quickly and as less expensive as I can? So
Mhm.
there's no better way to do that than give people credit for what they've already done.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we? So I think and we've just been, it's probably been a couple of years, maybe it's not that long, since they introduced PLA for grad students. So I do all the PLA for MBA students. So how do we do that? I mean, I could help with it, but I think that's a topic that would be really interesting for people to go, wow, I didn't even, we hear about PLA, but I'm not sure if it's a really robust process how
Mhm.
credit, non-traditional credit gets awarded. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's another topic that I think would be really interesting.
I really appreciate that. I just wrote in my notebook to reach out to Alexa Dunn.
Yeah, I mean, I could help with. I just can't.
Okay.
I don't get too stretched, but I think it would be a fantastic
Yeah.
presentation.
I'll name drop you, Charlie. Thank you.
Go ahead. Feel free.
um, well, is there anyone else who would like to share? I see Amanda, I met you in the Power of One focus groups, and Nancy also, some associate faculty. Would love to hear your ideas if you want to share. Oh, Kate, I see you just raised your hand.
So, a lot of my 2022 has focused on not only the understanding of the UAGC processes related to course development, but a deeper dive into theory, not only philosophies of teaching, but teaching models, universal design. It's been a very spongy 2022 for me. And so, and I love those times. I mean, that's like what gets me up in the morning. I love to learn. But one of the things that Amy, who's on here, with me as well, we've been digging into is Freere's idea of raising consciousness within students, which I think ties into this culture of care really closely. And so I'm hoping to do some sort of panel on aspects of course development that sort of go beyond DEIB and sort of go beyond, just good universal design. And instead, maybe you're looking at.
Do you see Lynn looking at you?
Yeah, I don't know if she wants me to stop or.
I think she's just excited.
Focusing perhaps even maybe just a little bit before we get into course learning outcomes. Okay, Lynn. I was like, I want to explore those larger questions, the sort of existential questions that we hope lead our course development, and how different institutions, regardless of modality, sort of approach that work. So, it can turn into this sort of rote activity of like, define your learning outcomes, figure out what evidence you want to collect, create a summative assessment, like it can just turn into that. But if we lose, like, what are the big questions that we want our students to be asking, or what's really important for them to learn overall in order to be great at whatever the skill is out in the real world, out in their potential next job. So that is the loose, baggy monster, as you would say, Teresa, of what I'm thinking of. So I don't have a full framework.
That's okay.
But that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Just listening to you, it made me realize that, what you're talking about, and, each of these questions, even the conference theme itself, if we really wanted to boil down what we're talking about, it's how do we build consciousness, as you said, which inherently is building self-efficacy, right? Regardless of what a student chooses to do in school or post school, the highest order goal is making sure they know that they're confident, or they feel confident that they can succeed. Yeah, that's cool. Lynn, do you want to add?
I'm so sorry to have been so distracting, Kate. I'm so sorry. I have not finished my coffee yet. That's my only excuse. I've submitted a proposal for accessibility classrooms. And Kate, that really meets just hand in hand with what you were talking about. So, and I'm happy to do one or the other, or I'm happy to do both. But if you would like a panelist, I would be very happy to participate on your panel. I have, as most of you well know, I have a lot of course development experience, credit hour calculation, all of that. So, use me how you can. I'm happy to participate.
Oh, that's awesome. See, making some connections.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, I just realized that we are 6 minutes over time, and I would love to stay in here and chat, but I also want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I will close with this. Anybody who has attended, I think, should feel free to reach out to anybody you see here, including, here, I'll go to this other slide, the TLC email address, to ask any questions, continue to brainstorm ideas. Also, I will point out several in this room, including Kate, anybody on the faculty support team, and Connie Lower are long-standing TLC administrators and supporters. So if you have any questions about how things work or what you might need, feel free to reach out. And we will look forward to seeing your proposals. For anyone who has volunteered to be a proposal reviewer, expect communication coming soon about next steps for that once the call for proposals ends. And we'll just be excited to keep working with you. So take care. Thanks again for coming, and we'll see you soon.